In a move that stunned the world, Russian President Vladimir Putin turned to an unlikely ally in the Ukraine conflict, North Korea. Facing mounting losses and a stagnant front line, Putin struck a deal with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to provide military support. This pact saw thousands of North Korean soldiers deployed to the Ukrainian battlefields, a desperate gamble aimed at turning the tide of the war. The Kremlin's propaganda machine went into overdrive, hailing the North Korean troops as volunteers eager to join the fight against Western imperialism. However, the reality was far more transactional. North Korea, starved for cash and resources, saw an opportunity to gain valuable combat experience for its soldiers and secure much-needed economic aid from Russia. This alliance, forged in desperation, sent shockwaves through the international community. Many saw it as a sign of Russia's increasing isolation and desperation, while others feared the potential consequences of further escalating the conflict. The stage was set for a dangerous new chapter in the Ukraine war, one with far-reaching implications for all involved. Putin's rationale for enlisting North Korean troops was clear: bolster his faltering invasion force. Russian forces had suffered heavy casualties and faced logistical challenges, while Ukrainian resistance remained fierce. The arrival of North Korean soldiers, hardened by years of military service and accustomed to harsh conditions, was intended to provide much-needed manpower and relieve pressure on the Russian front lines. Moreover, Putin likely calculated that deploying North Korean troops would carry a psychological impact. He aimed to project an image of strength and resolve, signaling to the West that Russia had powerful allies and was willing to escalate the conflict. The Kremlin also hoped that the presence of foreign fighters would demoralize Ukrainian forces and erode international support for Ukraine. However, this strategy was inherently flawed. It relied on the assumption that North Korean troops would prove effective in a modern battlefield environment, despite their lack of experience with advanced weaponry and combined arms operations. Furthermore, it underestimated the resolve of the Ukrainian people and the international community's condemnation of Russia's aggressions. The deployment of North Korean troops to Ukraine culminated in the disastrous Battle of Kursk, a pivotal moment that exposed the folly of Putin's gamble. Tasked with capturing the strategically important city of Kursk, the North Korean contingent found themselves ill-prepared for the ferocity of the Ukrainian defense. Armed with outdated equipment and lacking adequate air support, the North Korean troops were decimated by Ukrainian artillery and drone strikes. Their rigid Soviet-style tactics proved ineffective against the mobile and adaptable Ukrainian defenders. The result was a massacre, with thousands of North Korean soldiers killed or captured. The Battle of Kursk sent shockwaves through the Russian military. The losses suffered by the North Korean contingent were staggering, exposing the limitations of Putin's strategy and the hollowness of his claims about their combat prowess. It also highlighted the deep flaws within the Russian military itself, which had become overly reliant on poorly trained and equipped foreign fighters. The disastrous outcome of the Battle of Kursk laid bare the human cost of Putin's ill-conceived gamble. The North Korean soldiers, many of whom were conscripts with little understanding of the conflict they were thrust into, became cannon fodder in a war not their own. Reports emerged of North Korean troops being poorly equipped, underfed, and lacking even basic medical care. Those who survived the fighting faced capture and an uncertain fate in Ukrainian prisoner-of-war camps. The plight of the North Korean soldiers in Ukraine sparked international outrage, highlighting the brutality of the conflict and the cynical calculations of both Putin and Kim Jong-un. It served as a stark reminder that behind the geopolitical maneuvering and military strategies, real lives were being lost in a senseless war. Political fallout, repercussions for Russia. The disastrous consequences of involving North Korean troops in Ukraine reverberated throughout Russia, dealing a significant blow to Putin's regime and its carefully crafted narrative of military might. The Kremlin's attempts to downplay the losses and suppress information about the true extent of the disaster proved futile. The sight of body bags returning home, many containing the remains of young North Korean soldiers, further eroded public support for the war. The political fallout from the Kursk disaster extended beyond Russia's borders. The debacle tarnished Russia's image on the world stage, exposing the limitations of its military capabilities and the recklessness of Putin's leadership. The deployment of North Korean troops to Ukraine drew widespread condemnation from the international community, further isolating Russia and solidifying its status as a pariah state. Governments and human rights organizations alike denounced the move as a dangerous escalation of the conflict and a violation of international law. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting to address the issue, with Western powers leading the charge in condemning Russia's actions. However, any hopes of imposing further sanctions on Russia were dashed by the veto power wielded by China, which continued to provide diplomatic cover for Putin's regime. Galvanized global public opinion against Russia, strengthened support for Ukraine, and increased pressure on countries that continue to support Putin's regime. North Korea's reckoning a Pyrrhic victory. The disastrous outcome of the Battle of Kursk dealt a significant blow to Russia's military ambitions and raised questions about North Korea's future. Kim Jong-un's gamble for economic aid and military enhancement backfired. Heavy losses in Ukraine and international condemnation further isolated North Korea. The debacle exposed military limitations, raising doubts about its armed forces. Despite setbacks, it remains to be seen if the Kursk disaster will change North Korea's behavior. Kim Jong-un, like Putin, is ruthless and unpredictable, willing to sacrifice lives for political goals.